Up with y'all? Ready to try to explain this recent breeding I just did for y'all with Nephis and Roku. So we already know in any pairing of, you know, any really, most animals or anything really, any pairing that consists of two parents, we know each parent brings 50%. But you gotta think in this terms, Roku is Nephis' son already. So we know both parents bring 50%. Think about it like, all right, Nephis give her 50%, and then Roku gives his 50%. But we all know that 50% that Roku gives to the pups will be 25% of Nephis already. So in this breeding, if we already have 50% of Nephis that she gives, half the dogs get half of their genes from her, and then Roku would give his 50%, which will already be his half is already half of his mom, which is Nephis. So you add that 25% to the 50% that she already brings, it will be 75% Nephis ideally. You see what I'm saying? So basically it's 75% Nephis, 25% Roku. But you got to remember in a regular breeding, the grandparents consist of 25%, not the parents. See what I'm saying? So even though Roku is giving 50%, it's like him only giving 25% because the other 25% is just going right with the 50. That's already, most of them traits will be brought in by his mom already. And if not, it just be, enhanced or whatever that, however the genes want to play out. But you got 75% Nephis, and you got really you could say it's 50% Roku, but it's really not, because it wouldn't show that well in the 50% with Nephis having so much influence. So it's really like 25% Roku. So with it being 25% Roku, I say it like that because even though the 25%, like from the grandparents, right? We bring this trait. Roku is much shorter than T'Challa. T'Challa around like 27 and a half. Yeah, like closer to 28, than 27. So Roku is about 24, 23, 24 right now. But that's, due to his mom. You see what I'm saying? She isn't that tall. She's about 21. About 21, maybe 22. Roku about 23, 24. So with that being said, you could bring in the traits of height, right? So if Roku is much shorter than his dad, we basically locking in like a height gene. How tall they would be. You get what I'm saying? Not like getting a crazy freak like T'Challa as much. You will more so get dogs in between that 22, 23 and like 25 range. Roku is about like 95, 100 pounds. And then Nephis is about an 80-pound dog, right? So you put them together, then you can obviously believe that they should meet in the middle. But with Nephis having more influence, they should be closer to her on most things that do get the show, or traits that, meaning how they act or phenotype, how they look, or whatever the 75% influence in the pup. You get what I'm saying? So when you break it down like that, T'Challa is like a 25% influence on this litter, But really, that would be because he's a grandparent, the 25% influence. But really, it's like 12 and a half, because the 25% is really like Roku. Roku will really be like 25% in this litter, and Chala will be 12.5%, making Chala a grandparent, bringing in 12.5% influence on the genes. Is the reason why you still get a few dogs that kind of do look like him still in this litter, and they definitely still got, like, you know, traits from like the size of him. You can see the difference in what dog derived from where gene wise. So you can see which dogs came from Nephis more, or you can see which dogs came from Roku more, or you can see which dogs kind of came from T'Challa more, right? And it was a, you know, it was a few dogs in there that I believe will be like more like T'Challa mom, Dior. So if you got 12.5% of T'Challa really as an influence, if really in a regular breeding it would be 25%, because through Roku, T'Challa would be a grandparent, which would be 25% relation to the pups on that Roku creates. But in this case, it's like 75-25 Roku. Out of Roku 25, what is that? Half of, you know, that. So you gotta look at it like, out of the 25 that Roku consists of, it's like 25 of it will be who he is already. So he isn't exactly the height of his mom, and he isn't exactly the height of his dad. He isn't exactly the weight of his mom, and he isn't exactly the weight of his dad. So I say out of the 25% influence, he still, you know, he still has that influence on that. But out of the 25%, 12.5% of the influence that Roku will give comes from T'Challa. You see what I'm saying? So out of the 25% that Roku would, so if you want to bring in T'Challa parents in the equation, if 75% influence, you know, the genes will be Nephis, and then the other 25% will be coming from Roku, but T'Challa would have a 12.5 influence on Roku's 25% influence, right? So if you want to bring in T'Challa's parents, which would be the great-great-grandparents to this litter, she will have a 6.25% influence on this litter, right? So you will have Dior having a 6.25% influence on this litter, because that's Chala's mom. You see what I'm saying? Chala mom is Dior. Dior mom is Prada. So Prada will be a great grandparent to these pups on the floor. You see what I'm saying? And then if you want to go to Prada mom, it will be Gucci, and Gucci will be, you know, a great to these pups. So Prada will have, Dior will have the 6.25 influence. Prada will have the 3.125, 3.1, you know, influence. And then if you want to go to Gucci, she will have a 1.5% influence on the pups. And then if you want to go to Gucci's dad, which will be Hick fella, Hick will be, you know, half of the 1.5. It's a little over. It's like 1.56. But that's where, that's on Chala's side. So that's where on these pups the 0.78 or something like that percent influence of Hick comes in along, to add to Nephis 37% that Hick comes from through her. So with these pups on the ground, 37%, 37.78% of the genes that Nephis will pass over would be from Hick fella, and the other 37% will be through Nova, which is her mom. Hickfella is her dad. So that's how you get the 37.78% Hickfella and the 37% Nova, and then you go over to this side, and you will break down Roku, other side. With the influence is get a little. That's why this type of breeding ain't for everybody at all. It get a little like, not a little confusing. It gets real confusing, because it's like, how could Roku have a 25% influence and T'Challa have a 25% influence? It's not. You got to look at it as in, Roku did get 50% of him. See what I'm saying? But 25% of it will be T'Challa. But that's ideally in a regular breeding. In this case, it would be, what you will be able to see from Roku out of this will only really be like 25% the difference. So ideally, you locking in more traits of Nephis, and then you're just like complementing it with the 25% Roku, or the 12.5% T'Challa, or the 6.25% Dior, or the 3% Prada. You see what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it, and think about it all and all that type of stuff. So we got remember, Nephis 75%, Roku 25%. Out of Roku's 25%, 12.5% influence will be from Chala. The other 12.5% will be through whatever, basically set of like new genes Roku set up. So we know, and what I mean by that is, Roku is only, like I said, he isn't the same weight and he isn't the same height as his parents. You see what I'm saying? So with that being said, it's like a new phenotype like being made, almost, as far as the weight Roku is and the height he is. So that's what I will be saying. His 12.5 influence could play a role on weight, height, temperament, anything, of course, traits, any type of traits. But it can also just go like more so T'Challa, and have a 12.5% influence from T'Challa. So some pups could be much bigger than the ones that got like Roku's 12.5%. They got more of T'Challa's 12.5%, which would be, bigger in size, and more like way bigger really, and much taller, and different attitudes. Not really too much different attitudes, but it is different still, two different dogs. So you're gonna get more traits that T'Challa would give you from his 12.5%. You see, so it's definitely kind of confusing, not for everybody. Yeah, so that pretty much breaks it down as much as I got time for right now. But nah, that should break it down enough. But if y'all want me to talk about it more, or try to go deeper into, or even just talk about how I look at like an outcross, or different type of line breeding and stuff. But yeah.